Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this night-ending bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below, the merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night-ending bonus upload, shall we? I'm not sure what to call this thing. All I know is that it was nowhere near human. If I remember correctly, my first encounter with it was when I was around 10 or 12 years old. I'm turning 20 in 4 days. It's all a bit fuzzy. What I do remember is that at the time, we were in the state of California, and 2, playing hide and seek with a few of my friends. For privacy's sake, we will call them Ray and Finn. It was already pretty late, I would say 6:45. It was autumn, so the sun was practically gone by this time. It was Ray's turn to seek myself and Finn. We decided to run off together since we both really didn't like the dark all that much, and phones with lights were still pretty expensive, so none of us had one. Only thing we had was one of those old shake lights that you would have to shake to charge. Anyway, it was about 10 minutes since the round started. Ray got close, but never close enough to find us. It was funny for a bit until myself and Finn heard it. It sounded like a low growl, like a wolf, but just deeper and more messed up, kind of like it was sort of underwater. I remember when I heard it, we both yelled and ran out running to Ray. Ray, oh, there you are, guy. Why do you guys look scared? At that moment, myself and Finn were pretty scared and shaken up, and we just wanted to get out of there. We kind of looked at each other in silence, then grabbed Ray by the shoulder and guided him out, not daring to look back. And honestly, the only reason I didn't look back was because I swore I heard it following us. We barely got any sleep that night, especially when the house was old and just wouldn't stop making those creepy sounds you always hear at the worst possible time. I believe it was around 6:30 in the morning when I decided to try to fall asleep. I went into the bathroom to wash my face off. I shit you not, while I was washing my face, I saw it behind me. The only details I could get in at that moment before I freaked out was that it had blood-red eyes, and its body was pure black. At that point, I knew damn well that I wasn't going to be able to sleep, so I turned the TV on and just watched some cartoons for the rest of the day, trying to keep whatever I saw out of my head. Fast forward a week later, and we've kind of forgotten about it already. We're out in the forest playing a game once more. This time it was around 7:30. I was it this time, and I had the shake light close to making sure to keep it charged as I wandered around looking for Ray and Finn. But instead of finding them, I found it instead, whatever it was. Because of how dark it was and its black body, I could barely make out any features. Didn't help that it was looming over a dead deer carcass and eating. It didn't even care that it ate the bones as well. What I could make out with the light and because of the blood was that it had a reptilian-like jaw, not like a snake or lizard, honestly. It was more like what you would see a dragon, yet its teeth and the amount were uncanny. I was frozen in fear for a bit when it realized I was there. I dropped the light and ran for my life, yelling for Ray and Finn to get out as well. I thought it was following me, but it was just Ray and Finn catching up to me as we ran inside. They tried to ask me what had happened, but honestly, I was too scared to even talk about it. I just hugged them, glad to see they both made it out alive. Thing I didn't get that much sleep that night. As well, honestly, I'm surprised I got any sleep. But now I regret even lying down that night, since when I woke up, I was in paralysis-like state, unable to move and struggling to breathe. Whatever I saw in the forest was right at the foot of my bed, crouching down just to fit into the room, so it had to have been at least 8 feet in height, if not taller. The morning light kind of revealed what I was correct about: the dragon-like face. Well, dragon mixed with a wolf. I could hear something dripping as it slowly inched up onto the bed. I was scared and completely immobile. It got right above my face, its mouth slightly open like it was going to eat me. It just sat there like that for an eternity. But suddenly it lunged, and I finally broke free and yelled. After a second of screaming, I realized that I was still alive, and my mom had come to check on me. Seeing how scared I was, she ran over to make sure that I was okay. All I could do was sit there and shake out of terror. The only sign that anything had happened was a huge print on my bed sheets. It was kind of black, like ink, but it quickly disappeared. From that day on, it kept getting worse. I had horrific night terrors, constantly had sleep paralysis, where I would see it take many forms. Fast forward to a half a year, we hit our breaking point. Myself, Ray, and Finn were having a sleepover at my house, playing Minecraft since it was still new and we loved building games. It was around 5 o'clock, and dinner had just gotten done when we heard it. A loud thud on the roof that slowly became scratching as low demonic-like growls followed the scratching. At this point, my dad had enough. He grabbed 2 guns, asking Finn to follow since he was the oldest out of us 3, 15 at the time, almost 16. They went outside to see what was up. It was themselves, and to see if they could kill it once and for all. It kind of started to rain a bit when they were outside. Myself and Ray were not allowed near the door since my dad didn't want it to be able to lunge down and take one of us. But as a minute turned into 20, slowly hearing them get louder and louder, practically yelling at whatever it was. I was right about to open the door when Ray pulled me away. We heard 2 gunshots, then 3 more, as my dad was yelling and screaming. After a moment, he ran inside, slamming the door, closed it, and locked it, breathing heavily. Finn was nowhere to be seen, and we kind of just thought of the worst, since Dad did kind of have a bit of blood on him. His leg was messed up, his bone was showing. It almost made me puke on the spot. Dad was fine now, since he had to have surgery. But for Finn, we were right to think the worst, because I learned that yes, Finn did indeed die that day. They have yet to find his body, and Dad has not been the same. The next day, I had to say goodbye to Ray since my dad and Mom couldn't handle being in that house anymore. We moved all the way to Washington as soon as we could. We've been here since, but I believe it followed us. On one of my late-night walks, I can sometimes hear something following me, and my dad just doesn't want to talk about it. The only details I have gathered from my dad about this creature is that it was 9 feet tall. It had dragon-like wings, a wolf-like dragon head. Its body was dripping like ink or tar, and it had spikes down its back. It's hard to talk to my dad about any details because he has gone down a road of drinking, but honestly, I think it's back and I am scared. I don't want anyone to die anymore, and I don't want to move again. I am once more, and I get that I didn't really see it myself. My friend died, that is, but it still scares me. I still have sleep paralysis and nightmares about this creature. Thank you. So after sharing that experience in the live stream, I thought a little bit about where and why that creature sounded familiar to me. And I did a little bit of research, and it's going to bring us down a really terrifying rabbit hole. Because what I didn't remember at that moment was the Montauk Project, the Montauk chair, which was a controlled experiment where a young man named Duncan was put through terrible experiments. And there's a lot that surrounds Duncan and who he was. Time warping, etc., time travel, and this right here. On August 5th, 1983, we were given a directive to run the transmitter nonstop. Just turn it on and let it go continuously. We followed the orders, but nothing out of the ordinary occurred until August 12th. Then something very strange happened, when all of a sudden the equipment appeared to drop in sync with something else. We didn't know what function the system was now attuned to, but at that point, the USS Eldridge, the ship used for the Philadelphia experiment, appeared through the portal we had locked up with the Eldridge. I'm not sure if this was a pure accident, but if the Montauk researchers were trying to hook up with the Eldridge, the attempt had to be made on this exact date. This is due to the 20-year biorhythms of the planet Earth, which was a discovery made in the process of these experiments, and the Eldridge experiment having occurred August 12th, 1943. At this point, the Duncan from 1943 appeared and could be seen through the time portal along with his own brother. Both were crew members of the USS Eldridge. We kept the Duncan from 1983 from seeing himself so as to avoid a time paradox and result in negative effects. The project had now reached apocalyptic proportions. Natural laws were being violated, and it seemed everyone involved felt very uncomfortable. 3 colleagues and myself had been privately voicing misgivings about this project over the period of months. We had talked about the pitfalls of dealing with time and how this may affect the karma of the planet. We hoped that the project would truncate itself. Consequently, our little cabal created a contingency program that only Duncan could activate. It was designed to crash the entire project. We finally decided we had enough of the experiment. This contingency program was activated by someone approaching Duncan while he was in the Montauk chair and simply whispering, "The time is now." At this moment, he let loose a monster from his subconscious, and the transmitter actually portrayed a hairy creature. It was large, hairy, hungry, and nasty, but it did not appear underground in a null point. It showed up somewhere on the base. It would eat anything it could find, and it smashed everything in sight. Several different people saw it, but almost everyone described a different creature. It was either 9 feet tall or 30 feet tall, depending on who saw it. I personally believe it was about 9 to 10 feet in height. Fright does strange things to people, and no one was sure of the exact physical constitution of this creature. No one was in any frame of mind to calmly and collectively analyze the exact nature. My supervisor had ordered us to shut off the generators in order to stop whatever type of phenomenon was occurring. This did not work, so it was decided that the thing had to be stopped. It was decided that the transmitter had to be shut down. There were 2 efforts made in this direction. One was to send somebody back and turn off the transmitter on the Eldridge. They would be smashed if that was what was necessary to shut them down. The other effort was by myself and the director of the project. We unsuccessfully attempted to shut the transmitter at Montauk. We then went into the power station and disconnected the base from the Long Island Lighting Company. The power kept going and nothing stopped. We weren't concerned about these lights. We just wanted to stop the transmitter itself. We decided the next best thing to do was go into the power station and cut the wires leading into the ground from the big transformers. I put a acetylene torch on my back, cut the wires going into the ground. I had to be careful because they were hot. Still, nothing happened. The lights at the base stayed on. I figured there must have been another power feeds somewhere. We went over to the transformer farm next to the transmitter building and cut the wires coming out of the ground. At that point, the lights at the base went out. The computer stopped, but the lights in the transmitter building stayed on. We went into the building and pulled the wires out of the panel and control transmitter. The wires from the transmitter itself, the lights in the building went off, but the transmitter stayed on. I then went upstairs and cut the actual equipment apart. I cut the conduits. I cut the cabinets. Finally, I cut enough apart that the transmitter just groaned and stopped. All the lights went off. We had done it. Today you can still see torch marks where I had cut things. It was at this point that the beast stopped moving and faded back into the ether. The portal closed, and that was the end of the episode. This is another, for instance, from the Montauk Project from Duncan Cameron that he recalls. Have you ever encountered any extraterrestrial or seen any aliens in any of the underground base? From what I understand, the Department of the Navy made an agreement with the alien graves to exchange technologies for human women and children to conduct horrific breeding experiments. This is what is going on right now in the underground base not far from Miami, Florida. One of the most disturbing memories is being escorted down the hallway in this underground lab and seeing cages of chicken wire fences with women and children screaming for help. I've seen gray aliens, the 4-foot ones with large black eyes, and also 7-foot tall reptilian beings in some of my experiences. I have been told that I have many children from an alien breeding program. I have had abductions with the Greys as well. On one occasion, I was introduced to a reptilian being while in an underground base, sometime at either 1989 or 90. At first, I saw a 7-foot tall, human Aryan-looking man. He walked toward me, and I noticed that his image phased out as if something interfered with the energy field. He does something to a device on his belt and tells me, "Okay, I'll show you." He then pushes some button, and I see his image change into a 7-foot tall lizard-like creature who weighed over 400 pounds. So I shared that Montauk thing, one, because there is another experience that Duncan Cameron experienced while in the Montauk chair. There's an old interview that he had done, and verbally, where he discusses sitting in this Montauk chair, and out of the floor opens this enormous portal. And this huge kind of reptilian-like wolf creature comes out of the ground, or out of this portal, destroys the room. And Black Beret are sent in to hunt the creature. The creature is then killed somewhere in Camp Hero, Montauk. They do kill it, and it is by some sort of drainage ditch. As they kill this creature, and they're figuring out what to do with the body, how to cover everything up, figure it all out, they see Bigfoot-like creatures in and around Camp Hero. Just really strange stuff. But their experience was in California. Well, there is a deep underground military base in California. Probably more than one. I'm just guessing. And the most famous for me would be Mount Shasta. Now, these creatures that are wolf-like dragon creatures, we know the reptilian alien-like creatures are called draconian. These creatures are called Draco. Was undoubtedly seen by the Army as special protective symbol, while also played an important role in the religious life of the people. The Draco shows a religious between the wolf and the dragon, as well as a serpent. It was supposed to encourage the Dacians to scare their enemies. The wolf was depicted at the standard's head, symbolic of the animal, the Carpathian people, since the Phase B of Hallstatt period, 10th to 8th century BC. The animal is shown in aggressive posture similar to that of the Hittite monsters. Now, could this young man and this family have experienced a creature that was genetically created, or was the creature a portal-like creature coming out of a portal? That makes more sense to me. The way, there's one point where he states, I don't know if it was 9 feet or 30 feet tall. It was dripping this. He at first thought it was blood while this creature was consuming the deer. But then when it's in his room, he realizes that no, it's not blood. It's this inky-like substance. So, and there was a print left on his bed that eventually in time did disappear. These are all things like when we think about portals that I have heard, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I have heard, and I'm pretty sure the majority of you guys have too, because we're all fascinated by the same things, that traveling through these portals, there is some sort of plasma or something that gets trapped on you, especially if this is like some hell-formed creature. But I wanted to share that with you guys because I really thought this experience was truly amazing and absolutely terrifying, and a young man did lose his life that night. So let's jump into today's second encounter. So after Duncan Cameron's experience on the base, And these gentlemen were trying to figure out how to shut off this transmitter. People wonder what happened to Montauk. Why did it close? How did it close? Well, after the events on August 12th of 1983, the Montauk Air Force Base was abandoned. By the end of the year, there was no knowledge of anyone being on this base. In May or June of '84, a crack squad of Black Beret were sent to the base. I believe they were Marine, but I'm not sure. They were reportedly ordered to shoot anything that moved. Their purpose was to purge anyone or anything who might be on that base. There was a second team that followed the Black Beret. They removed secret equipment which was considered too sensitive to leave behind. The next step was to prepare the underground to be sealed up. Certain incriminating evidence was removed at this point. I have heard that a room with hundreds of skeletons was cleared out during this. About 6 months later, a caravan of cement mixers appeared at the base. Many people saw these trucks. They filled the vast underground area of Montauk with cement. This included dumping cement down elevator shafts as well. And the gates were locked up and the base abandoned for good. So right after all of that, they sent a crack team of Black Beret. Now, Black Beret, who else talks about Black Beret but Phil Schneider, when he had his initial run-in with gray-like alien creatures in the underground kind of battle of Dulce. Prior to the Dulce Wars, there were a couple different battles that occurred. And this is where Phil Schneider got burned very badly. But a Black Beret put his life on the line to protect Phil Schneider. And he was allowed to live because of this man's sacrifice. So our government is very corrupt. They know what they are doing, or they know what they are dealing with. I don't think they know exactly how dangerous it all really is. I think they think because they made a pact with these demonic like alien creatures that everything's all good. So, second encounter of the day. This happened a long time ago. I was around 13 or 14 in northwestern Georgia, on the corner of Alabama and Tennessee. Context, I'm 22. I was at my stepdad's house, which is situated down a long driveway in the woods. There's a house just ahead of his, separated by a thin veil of trees, but no other homes or buildings for a good few miles on either side. And the woods in the back go on for a good while, so it's very isolated. I had taken my Doc Jack out to pee. R.I.P. Jack, he died, a while back. And as I was walking down the stairs of the deck with him, he stops and starts to growl and whimper towards the woodline along the right side of the house. I thought maybe there was a coyote or something, so I walked toward the woodline to get a better view to see what my little dog was freaking out about. And I see something just barely in sight. It stood a good 6 to 7 feet in height. It had patches of fur, like mange, a short snout, very canine looking, but kind of human-like face, staring at me. I backed up. Grabbing Jack, ran up the stairs, locked the front door behind me. I never saw it after, and it didn't make any moves other than when it was looking at me. But it spooked me so bad I refused to go outside or even anywhere within the house by myself, to the point I was so scared to even leave my room to use the bathroom. And yeah, I had a few accidents. I know, gross, embarrassing, but I was a kid and freaked out. Now that I'm older, I've started to wonder, maybe I just imagined or misidentified, who knows. at it. I am able to go outside and stuff now. I am an avid hiker and work for the state parks service now. So, don't worry about that. But even now, I don't like going to my stepdad's house. It gives me the creeps still to this day. I always feel like something is watching me. Today's third encounter. I'm from Brazil, and I've seen a lot of things in my short 21 years of life, but one time I was doing a trail with a friend. We started very late, at like 22 p.m., and finished at around 1 a.m. near a residential area with an old church and cow pastures. My friend needed to deliver to a woman he knew some pots and pans that she had borrowed so we could make some food and sweets for the feast of São João, a Catholic holiday. In the way back home, we needed to walk a long dirt road which was separated from the pastures by a fence and trees back to back. Start to end of the road, we carried flashlights, but the night was very bright due to the road being very wide and open. Midway through the long road, we started to hear rumbling on the fence side behind the trees. I said that probably was a dog, and my friend believed. The sound became a little too close, and further we walked, my friend stated that was a very big dog. We kept walking until the noise was right behind our necks. With that ominous presence, I took a piece of wood that we carried in case we were attacked on the trails and asked my friend to shine the flashlight on the fence, and that was when we saw it. A large, skinny figure standing on its hind legs. Its arms were long. They touched the ground like a gorilla leaning back and hiding its true height. Looking us in our eyes with its crooked spine, it looked like a terminal anorexic bull with deformed face without horns, but with neck hair, like a mane, and moonlight gray skin and shiny eyes. This 1 second looked like an eternity. Suddenly the light went out, and when I looked, my friend was running and shouting for me to do the same. I ran like I never needed to run before, and with that thing running beside me in the other side of the trees. When we reached the end of the road, we were graced by a statue of Our Lady of Fatima standing still in his shrine, and the thing vanished into the fields. I asked my friend if he had seen it, and he said no, that he ran in fear. For so long I thought this was a werewolf, but it was so different from anything I have ever heard. I truly don't know but it still visits me in my dreams, lurking in the corners of my eyes. Today's next encounter. I know this may sound crazy, but I figured I would share my experience. It was around 2016. I remember it being summertime. The trees and brush were still full and lush. My wife and I lived on 12 acres of land in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. The land was mostly wooded, with maybe 3 acres around the home cleared out with the exception of randomly spaced trees, 2 acres in the front yard and about 1 acre in the back. The house was built in 1969, and the state of the home was the original year, right down to the shag carpet. We originally moved back in 2014, and over the years of living there, we've gradually worked on remodeling when we had extra time and money. The land had 2 small barns on the property we turned into chicken coops. We also decided to add sheep. Side note, the home itself always had an unsettling feeling. The basement had a dark, evil feeling with a freezer full of animal carcasses and a gallon bucket full of frozen blood that was there when we moved in. That's another story of its own. Over the span of living there, we had problems keeping our chickens alive. We couldn't find how something could be getting in. One day we got home from our grocery shopping in the early afternoon to find all of our chickens dead and spread across the backyard, which did not make any sense. We had that heavy-duty, hard wire cloth wiring cage that was torn like something clawed through it, but we were concerned and weren't sure what to do. After all, we had sheep to worry about as well. I began setting out at night at different times of the day when I had time too. I thought maybe I could hunt whatever had been killing our animals, but nothing ever showed up. We kept a close eye on our sheep the best we could, making sure he was protected. That was until one random morning we went to go feed him and found him out in his stable, lying there in the backyard, not moving. We still don't know how he got out. He had no marks or explanation of what happened to him. The only thing coming to mind was a fear-induced heart attack. Now on to the sighting. Like I said, it was summertime. I had the windows open because our AC was not working well on the second floor. And I was trying to get a breeze into the house. My wife was at work. Meanwhile, I'm working on putting our laundry away. I'm in the upstairs bedroom. I began hearing a deep growling sound, slightly higher pitch growling sound with it. I couldn't tell what it was, so I stuck my head out the window to listen better. I could hear something from the woods on the right side slowly getting louder, slowly getting closer to being in view. As the sound drew near, my heartbeat sank. I felt fear and dread. I was scared, but I wasn't sure why. That was until it came into the clearing, and there it was, a giant wolf-like creature walking across my front yard. It was walking on all fours. It had a giant canine head and a large humped back with a bushy tail, and its fur was thick on its chest and back and thinned out on its legs. Its joints bent like ours as it walked. Its back legs bent like our knees do, and its front legs bent like our elbows as well. As it was walking into our front yard, I was able to measure it up by it walking past a tree. It was standing at least 5 feet on all fours to its shoulder. So I had imagined it being at least 8 feet tall, standing on its hind legs. The slightly higher pitch sound was coming from behind it. Following behind was an identical pup. I was in such shock that I could not move, frozen in what I was witnessing. I didn't even think to try and photograph it. I guess in that moment, I didn't want to miss anything. It carried on across the front yard, going deeper into the woods. I told my wife about it and never saw it again after that day. Also, never went outside without protection after that. We ended up moving in 2018. Thank you. This is their experience. So when they talked about the cooler with carcasses and that bucket of blood, this is the experience that the second kind of part to that experience. I've dealt with the paranormal ever since I can remember, but this experience happened in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. My wife and I moved sometime in September of 2014. We bought the home at auction and it needed a lot of work. The home was built in 1969. The house sat on 12 acres with only 3 acres cleared out. The home, other than some random trees, but the rest was fully wooded. The basement was gross and musty. The ceilings were low in places, and the pipes and ductwork running throughout. It had an odd, strange feeling when I walked down there. Previous owners left a deep freezer, and what they had inside made me question the things they were doing in the basement. The freezer was full of different animal carcasses that had been stripped out of meat. Random bone pieces, bits of fur still attached. There was also a gallon bucket sitting in there full of blood. Our very first night staying there, my brother and sister decided to stay as well. We were all hanging out anyway. It got late, so they decided to stay. While they were there, we were unpacking boxes and decorating for Halloween. I started walking the empty boxes and totes down to the basement. While down there, something caught my eye. I saw something that looked like a slim box sitting on top of the ductwork. I walked over and pulled the box down, and sure enough, it was an old 70s Ouija board. Not thinking too much about it, I grabbed it, brought it up the stairs, sat in our dining room hutch for decoration. The night was getting late. We were all getting tired. It had to have been around midnight. We decided to head up to the second floor and go to bed. All of the bedrooms were dispersed on the second floor. My wife and I took the master bedroom. My brother and sister took rooms of their own. We lied there trying to doze off when suddenly we heard what sounded like closet doors sliding and slamming shut, and the sound of running and stomping back and forth in the hallway. My wife had me get up and tell my brother and sister to stop, that we were trying to sleep. I get up to go to each of their rooms and ask what they were doing. We were trying to sleep. And their words were, "I thought that was you guys." I decided to grab my gun, thinking, okay, maybe someone had broken in. I slowly walked downstairs, clearing each room as I went along. My wife, brother, and sister followed behind me with a gun of their own. We cleared every room there was. No one was in the house. Suddenly it dawned on my sister. It's the Ouija board. I quickly grabbed it from the hutch cabinet and took it back to the basement. It was silent for the rest of the night. As time went on, the spirit was making itself known. We would have to block the basement door shut because we were constantly finding it open. Anytime we had to go into the basement, we felt a presence. It was demonic. We were hearing it walking up to the second floor, walking around the bedrooms. Doors would randomly slam shut. Lights would surge randomly. I began seeing dark shadow figures. It wasn't just any spirit. It was a dark spirit. It felt demonic. I felt like I was losing my mind. Voices were constantly in my head. Sometimes they were whispers. Other times they were louder, but always sounded muffled. I could never make out what they were saying, but it was all the time. The only time the voices were not in my head was when I wasn't home. We had chickens and sheep that died for no reason. All of our vehicles constantly had problems, including our mower. One day while putting the laundry away, I had the windows open to catch the summer breeze. I heard a strange sound. I looked out the window and listened. It was coming from the right side. It got closer. What I saw was either a hellhound or a dogman walking through the front yard. It disappeared into the woods. I was so shocked seeing it. One random night we were watching a movie. The lights surged. We heard the basement door slowly opening. I jumped up to wedge the door shut with a chair. Another night I walked past the basement door to find it open with no lights on, and I hear my wife down there calling my name. I thought that was strange, so I didn't walk down there. I then heard walking above me. I slowly walk upstairs to the second floor. I make my way to the stairs and turn the corner to find my wife in our room. I told her how I heard her voice calling my name from the basement. What did it want me down in the basement for? The presence continued, and it was making us feel on edge. Tired, I was hardly sleeping. I tossed and turned, and the voices were growing louder. Yet I could never make out what they were saying. After a few years, we decided to put the house up for sale. My father-in-law was over helping work on a few things before the house hit the market. While he was there, doors slammed shut, and the voices started to enter his mind. He even said he couldn't make out what they were saying. Eventually, we did move, and the voices went away. Final encounter. Approximately 3 a.m., April 15th, 2015, Central Daniel Boone National Forest. I don't want to give any specifics for the safety of others. I don't want people getting in trouble or hurt. It was on a remote road. The encounter, my wife and I were traveling to the Great Smokies from Ohio on an anniversary getaway. We usually avoid highways in our travels and instead prefer the scenic and slower-paced state routes of my childhood. This trip stood out as quite the disaster as we struggled with both GPS and paper maps while navigating the route. I was at least somewhat familiar with the navigational errors are not on the norm, and we quickly found ourselves having an uncharacteristic argument that got fairly heated but was nonsensical. It was like we spoke different languages and we were looking at different maps. We eventually found ourselves in increasingly less populated areas and poorer road conditions. For those not familiar with the area, being in central Kentucky, the forest is hilly and expansive, dotted with small towns and the occasional privately owned farm amidst the federal land. We had eventually quieted down, anxiously following the GPS as it cut in and out. Our anxiety grew until the GPS suddenly claimed, "Turn left now." I responded by reluctantly starting to turn while my wife suggested it must be a shortcut we were unaware of. Upon completing the turn, I slowed, seeing the road took a sudden drop in quality. Potholes large enough to get stuck in, overgrown scrub growth on the edge of the ominous gnarled vines hanging down. The hair stood on the back of my neck, as it still does, writing this out. Bringing the car to a stop, I asked my wife, "Are you sure about this?" as I looked toward her. "No, we need to turn around." She starts, but is cut off, almost frozen, staring at her phone. Not in a way a person freezes when terror sends their muscles trembling, but completely motionless. I instinctively slam it in reverse, backing into the position we came so that I could continue the course we were on. As we reached the end of our reverse turn, I slammed it into drive, but went nowhere as the rear of this early 2000 Lincoln was lifted off the ground. Before I can process what is happening, something charged from the woods to our right. At first, it was a large red blob that moved with speed and grace that seemed unnatural to its grotesque nature. As it closed the gap, it was clear that it was running on all fours, but only partially so. Its forward movement agile, but uneven as it irregularly used its arms with its oddly bent hind legs. It was almost like its limbs were growing as it eventually came to a stand on its hind legs and placed its hands on the glass. Up close, I could see what I thought was fur seemed more like strands of rotten flesh that grew as thick as shaggy dog. It smelled overwhelming like rotten fish and moss. Its hands looked nearly human, were it not for the rotten fur and long claws. The face sticks with me as much as the smell, being somewhat shaped like a human. That was its face twisted and pulled forward in vague canine shape, with large pointed ears toward the top of its head. Inside its snarling mouth were very long teeth that looked almost too large to close, but the eyes were the worst, bloodshot and yellow. They leered at my wife with hunger, the kind of hunger that promises unspeakable things. When you are in the fight or flight mode, you usually get the distinct moment of clarity where you make your choice, even if it's the one you are ashamed of. In that moment, I felt like a small dog defending my mate from a rabid wolf. I stomped on the gas and bellowed hard, "Go now!" A series of loud noises that sounded like more like barks than human noises. It jolted suddenly, and the rear of the car dropped, leading to a loud peel-out. It kept pace with us, scratching at the car and banging on it as we broke 45 miles an hour, driving wildly through the winding country road. We saw the lights of the town in the distance. We parked in a well-lit parking lot next to a gas station. We busied ourselves by inspecting the car, reluctantly sharing what we thought we saw. My wife was in tears, sobbing, feeling the pressure in her head, and that was and that she was conscious but paralyzed. Looking under the trunk, I spotted a cracked strut and a lump of rotten flesh dangling from the frame member. It smelled like an overpowering stench and sent us into tear-filled hug as we stared at the piece of the filthy creature and realized that it was likely at least two of them. The one in the window and the one that lifted the rear axle off the ground. Thoroughly shaken, we sat in the car facing the opposite direction and discreetly unpacked our handguns and hid them under our blankets. We waited until 9 or so and set back off toward our destination. Sorry for the typo errors. I am not the best writer. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this night ending bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. After all, it is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.